Martin Peters had it all: a loving family, a brilliant football career, and dreams for the future. But one deadly disease changed everything: a life taken too soon. This is how Alzheimer's disease tragically ended our legend's life. Martin Peters was born in November 1943, right in the middle of World War II. His early days started in Plaistow, Essex, but because of the bombings in London, he and his mum quickly moved out to the countryside in Shropshire to stay safe. When Martin turned 7, his family moved again, this time to Dagenham, and that's where he really got into football. At school, Martin played football any chance he got, trying out different positions on the field. He didn't really root for any particular team back then, but he caught the eye of several big clubs like Fulham, Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea. He almost joined Chelsea because his school friend Terry Venables was there, but ended up at West Ham United thanks to a scout who saw him play. For starters, Martin joined West Ham as a young apprentice when he was just 15 and turned pro there in 1960. His early years at West Ham were shaped by his coach, Ron Greenwood, who played a huge role in helping him find his groove. Greenwood had Martin play in various positions until he settled as a right half. Martin's first big moment for West Ham came in 1962, and soon after he scored his first goal against Manchester City. He even had to play goalkeeper once during a match, which just shows how versatile he was. Honestly, if you'd asked me, his early career had its ups and downs. He didn't get to play in the FA Cup final in 1964, but the following year he was part of the team that won the European Cup Winners' Cup at Wembley. As time went on, Martin really started to shine. He played a big part in the League Cup final in 1966, and his standout season was in 1968-69 when he scored a hat-trick in one game and ended up scoring 24 goals in 48 games. That year really put him on the map as a key player for West Ham, and from here there was no going back. By now, Martin Peters was an amazing midfielder, but he always felt like he was in the shadow of his famous teammates, Bobby Moore and Geoff Hurst. Looking for a fresh start, he switched from West Ham to Tottenham Hotspur in 1970, which was a big move. Thankfully, Peters kicked off his time at Spurs with a bang, scoring in his very first game against Coventry City. Not long after, he helped Tottenham clinch the League Cup by beating Aston Villa in 1971, which will never not be iconic. The next year, Peters was crucial in Tottenham's win in the UEFA Cup against Wolverhampton Wanderers. This was pretty special because it was the first time two English teams went head-to-head in a European final, something that didn't happen again until 2008. When a teammate left in 1972, Peters took over as team captain and led Spurs to another League Cup victory in 1973. They reached the UEFA Cup final again in 1974, but didn't win that time around. Then, in 1975, he moved to Norwich City, wrapping up his stint at Tottenham with 260 games and 76 goals. Now, at Norwich, Peters kept proving he still had plenty of game left, even as he got older. He made over 200 appearances, was named Player of the Season twice, and even had a special game in his honour with many of the 1966 World Cup winning England team playing. He was also awarded an MBE in 1978 for his contributions to football. But he indeed was growing old, which takes us to his post-retirement career. After his retirement, Peters shifted to a player-coach role at Sheffield United and finally took over as manager. Now, before we talk about it in detail, let's learn a thing or two about his international career. Internationally, Peters really made his mark with the England team starting in 1966, impressing the coach, Alf Ramsey, from his debut. He was part of the England squad that lifted the World Cup that year, even scoring in the epic final against West Germany, which England won in a nail-biter. Overall, he wore the England jersey until 1974, playing in 67 games. Throughout his career, Peters was known for his versatility, endurance and skill. He left a lasting impact on every team he played for, blending club triumphs with some tough international moments, but always staying a legend in the world of football. After his final match in 1981, Peters didn't waste any time switching gears to become a manager. He took over Sheffield United when they were sitting all right in the middle of the table. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned, and they ended up getting relegated for the first time in their history. Peters decided it was best to step down after that tough season. Post-football, Peters didn't leave the game completely. He played a bit for Gorleston in a lower league and then made a surprising switch to the insurance industry, where he stayed until 2001. But he kept one foot in football, joining Spurs board in a role that let him keep close to fans. He really enjoyed interacting with supporters and later did similar hospitality work for West Ham. In 2006, Peters decided to write down all his memories and experiences in a book titled The Ghost of 66. It was quite the year for him because he was also inducted into the English Football Hall of Fame with his old manager, Ron Greenwood. It was a nice tip of the hat to his successful playing days, but were they free from controversies? I guess not. Speaking of which, Martin Peters was a fantastic football player and also a key part of England's 1966 World Cup winning team. He was loved for his skill and sportsmanship, and his career was mostly free of any big scandals. But there was one thing that did ruffle some feathers: his transfer from West Ham United to Tottenham Hotspur in 1970. West Ham fans were pretty upset to see him go, especially since the deal involved their beloved Jimmy Greaves moving in the opposite direction. It felt like a betrayal to some, but this was more a fan reaction than anything Peters did wrong. Imagine your favourite player switching teams to play for a rival. It can be a tough thing to swallow. But it's important to remember that players have their own careers and ambitions. In this case, Peters was simply looking for a new challenge. So, while the transfer caused some heartache for fans, it wasn't a major controversy in the grand scheme of things. Peters remained a respected figure in football, remembered for his talent and contributions to the sport. But beyond this, there was one thing that was bothering our legend, almost eating him from the inside. A disease that made him forget his fans and forget his glorious days. But before we talk about it in detail, make sure to subscribe to never miss out. Now back to our legend. Back in 2016, football fans were really sad to hear that Martin Peters, a total legend and a hero, had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It's a really tough disease that messes with your memory and thinking, and it unfortunately affected the last few years of Martin's life. But even though he was dealing with that, everyone still remembered what an amazing player he was. He was super talented, could play in different positions, and was always a good sport on the field. He played for big clubs like West Ham, Tottenham and Norwich, and you could tell how much he loved the game and his team. Sadly, Martin passed away in 2019 at the age of 76, and it was a huge loss for football fans everywhere. People shared so many stories about watching him play for their teams and talked about what a great guy he was on and off the field. To make sure Martin was never forgotten, they did something really special at West Ham's stadium in 2021. They put his ashes in a special stone there, so he's always going to be a part of the club and remembered by fans forever. It was a really beautiful way to honour a true football legend. All in all, Martin Peters' life was a rollercoaster, full of highs and lows. Growing up during World War II, he didn't have an easy start, but he overcame these challenges to become a football legend. His incredible skill on the field made every team he played for stronger and more competitive. Despite facing Alzheimer's in his later years, which dimmed the light of his achievements somewhat, Martin Peters is remembered fondly as a talented player, a strong leader, and a genuinely good person. His legacy in the world of football is enduring and inspiring. His story reminds us that fame doesn't last forever, but the impact we have on others can. It also shows the strength of the human spirit and how one person can inspire so many. So, what's your favourite Martin Peters moment? Was it a goal he scored, a game he won, or maybe a time you met him? Share your memories in the comments section below. See you in the next one. Till then, take care.